Hello there. What do you say when somebody says, hello there? Yes, General Kenobi. So let's do that one more time. Hello there. Yes, I love Star Wars. So we're talking about D&D though on YouTube. So my name is Pittsburgh Pat, or my name is Patrick Madden. And Pittsburgh Pat is the name of my channel, one of several channels I have, but it's the most, has the most subscribers. So I just recently recommitted myself to D&D. And I was able to avail myself of some free time because I was let go from my job. And so I went to this game store that I always wanted to check out, but I always worked whenever it was open and everything was going on. So I started playing Adventure League D&D there. And it turned out that they needed DMs. So now I'm an Adventure League Dungeon Master. Now I had played 5e when it came out in 2014, but then there was a hiatus, and you know how it is, you just can't get 5 people in the same room together, right? This is before the ban on getting people in the same room together, which we won't talk about. But yeah, so it was hard. You'd have session 1, and then you wouldn't have session 2 for a month and a half. So the nice thing I like about Adventure League is you get to play every 2 weeks, right? So every 2 weeks, I either get to be a player or I get to be a DM, and I get to do this. Well, I was thinking, like, wouldn't it be interesting if I got some friends together, and because what happened 3 years ago made all of us have to learn how to do Zoom, we just play D&D on Zoom, right? So I invited some people to do that. And of course, I invited them to be here on this panel. And just like trying to get people together in the same room. So one of the reasons that I'm doing this is I'm recruiting new people to be on my Zoom. So if you want to do that, there's a sign-up list over here with, just put your email or one way to contact you here. And you can be a guest star on my show, or who knows, if you like it, you can become a regular member. So when we started playing 5e, a few years after that, we discovered Critical Role. I guess Critical Role really came up around, 2016 or something like that, at least on my radar. And so I thought, well, yeah, I mean, like, especially when you watch the early episodes, the technology is not a real barrier. Right? The great thing about Zoom in particular for me is that it seems like everybody knows it. So I've had people say, like, well, why don't you use the Microsoft version, or why don't you use there are these better versions? And I'm like, because everybody knows Zoom. I know that like the audio quality is kind of low. Like, forget trying to put music on it. Like if you try to play a song on Zoom, have you tried this? Oh, it's just horrible. So there's no battle music, but like in post we can do all that kind of stuff. But basically what I want to do is keep the bar low. Like Anne, for instance, I invited to play with us.
Speaking of keeping the bar low.
Do you want to put your microphone on? Anne's like a new player, so she's relatively new to D&D. And doesn't use Zoom all that much either, right?
No, I do not.
So we wanted to make sure that technology was not a barrier to entry.
In fact, I had just gotten a new laptop, and after having spent 4 hours setting it up, and Tara sat patiently wishing she were somewhere else, I still, when we came time to do our bit together, I still had no sound on my computer, and I had to use my phone to use sound, and yeah. So even an idiot such as I can play and have a good time and contribute, I think is the point. You can lower the bar.
Well, Anne's not, an idiot, obviously, but she we didn't want technology to be a barrier, and we found a workaround, right? But basically it was about play acting. We weren't even concerned as much about the rules of D&D as we were about like playing our characters, right? So what I thought would be interesting was to take existing characters and let the players play them. So what we did was my idea was that we take an existing universe or franchise. So the first one we did was The Wizard of Oz. So everybody got to be a character or two from The Wizard of Oz. And actually, I had run a one-shot with my regular group of D&D players back about 7, 8 years ago. And there was a mechanic in there that I'm kind of proud of that we didn't necessarily use, but I thought was kind of interesting, was one of the characters played Toto. And you could think how like that might be an obstacle, like communication might be an obstacle. So what we did was Toto could bark, and all the other characters, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, the Wicked Witch, all they would hear would be a bark. But Dorothy would hear one word. So Toto had to communicate in one-word phrases only to Dorothy, right? So they're like danger, or boom, or fire, or something like that. Monkeys. Oh, actually, one of our players played a flying monkey, of course, because he has to be different, and he always plays like an animal if he can. So, and one of our players is right here. Hey, Ruth, how are you? She does. You're welcome to come here if you want to, but okay, that's fine. And and the funny thing is, Ruth is excellent on stream. Like, she's an amazing player. But that's one of the great things about YouTube and Zoom is when you're in the comfort of your own home, right? And you've got the costume on, and you've got your cappuccino or your whatever your comfort foods are all around you, because D&D is all about snacking anyway. And we have snacks up here by the way, people. So if you want like some hard candy or something, please help yourself. So what we did there was, I think that also makes people more comfortable and able to like get into the character and play that character. Because sometimes when you go into Adventure League, like I was DMing on Thursday, and some people, they'll talk about what their character does, but then I like to say, show me. Like, show me what your character does. Stand up. Show me how you swung that sword and slayed that goblin. Like, get into it. And it takes a little bit of an ice-breaking thing, but eventually it does happen.
I was just thinking about character development, since I'm really new to the game. Julie, Ruth sat down with me last night for hours, and we talked about developing a character I can use for Dungeons and Dragons. And that was really fun. And I said to her, oh my goodness, if you really were into this, I can see this is a fantasy game. But what was interesting about Patrick's idea of choosing literature is that you had a well-known character with lots of depth. And you've also had experience seeing either reading about the character and seeing the character in action in some sort of video medium or reading, and probably have talked about it because Patrick chose really common literature, like The Wizard of Oz, and so you didn't have to do any research, and everybody, so you have a sense of character already, is my point, and you had lots of idea about what that character looked like, how that character behaved, how that character interacted. So that was really fun, that you just like, there I am. It was more like a stage play of sorts.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to make it funny. So we wanted to mess up the story. So, we know what happens when Dorothy gets to the Emerald City, but we just wanted to just mess it up. So at the end, I think like the Wizard of Oz has tactical missiles that like shoot down all the flying monkeys, and we had to get to the end, right? And so we had like a Deus Ex Machina, to like make sure that happened. Like no DM ever's done that before. And we did The Princess Bride too, which was a lot of fun because they're beloved characters, and we had Ruth actually did 2 characters. She did Miracle Max and Valerie, so that was a lot of fun for her, I think. It's these characters exist in our imaginations, and sometimes we think, what would have happened, or what would happen next, or what if they never met, or what if these two got together, or what if, and it just makes for fun play. And I mean, that's what D&D to me is all about, is fun play. But the thing about doing it on YouTube is I wanted to create an environment where you were sitting there at the table with us, okay? You were a player too. So that's the other reason that it's not like hyper polished, and it's not like, I mean, you know, I aspire to be a voice actor one day, but it's the type of thing where we're not professionals yet. We're learning our craft. We're learning how to play D&D, and we're learning how to try to do comedy, and comedy's hard, you know, like not everybody laughs at the same thing, you know. So I guess I've rambled on for a little bit. Does anybody have any specific questions I could answer at the moment?
I would like to add,
Go ahead.
I also fell into the beginner role of, I'm just a little bit older than everybody else. And Princess Bride, yeah, my sons love that, but I've watched it sort of kind of like, and they're like, oh my goodness, the Princess Bride. And so I had to watch the film, and which was fine, and I can play that game. But now I'm pushing and, well, hinting here and there about doing something for my favorite genre scholarship, and that's Shakespeare. And so we're tossing around, like I think everybody knows about Henry V, and I think everybody knows about, I don't know, Polonius and Cassio and Brutus and A2 and As You Like It and All the World's a Stage, but I guess not everybody does. And so I get what I'm saying is, so I delved into the Princess Bride. Shakespeare may be on the agenda, and that's fun too, because the Princess Bride was a little bit of a challenge for me, so they can deal with Hamlet or Romeo and Juliet. But the choice of literature is a challenge, because you have to do something that is common knowledge, so if people are watching on YouTube, they know what the heck, and also we have to know, as players, we have to know the literature as well. But we were struggling what to do. Like, can we do The Great Gatsby?
I don't know if we did The Great Gatsby, would everybody know who Daisy was? Everybody know. I mean, it's there, right? Because we had to do it in high school, I guess, if they still teach that in high school. You taught it in high school.
Yes, well, of course I taught it. It's my favorite book. But can you do something like To Kill a Mockingbird, where most people know that story, particularly with the Broadway revival with Jeff Daniels. But can we do that and play with it? Because it's very serious stuff. But could you stick to just Boo Radley and the kids?
What if Scout met Henry V? What if, you know what I mean? Like, what if you mash it up? What if you did something where you take characters from the different, your favorite, you know, what if Gatsby, you know, ends up like telling Juliet that Romeo's like a jerk?
Well, I have a question for you guys. Like, so I am an outsider. I am Pittsburgh Pat's wife, Tara by Tara. I have my own business too, and I'm a visual artist and I'm a cooking teacher. Sorry.
Let's get closer.
Okay. And so I listen to all this stuff, and I see all these things happening where you guys are playing and you're recording, and then you're putting it on YouTube. So I'm wondering, how is in the future, as we move forward, like, are you going to take input from the greater audience, the public, and like, are they going to give you guys ideas about what to do next, and then you invite them to a private session? Like, I'm just curious.
I would love to have feedback from the
like
audience.
the interplay between like the public, which is actually viewing it on YouTube, and you guys actually acting it out, like doing what they want.
It's a great idea. I think if once we build an audience that's large enough to respond, I think if anybody knows anything about YouTube, you know, you may get like thousands of views and not get any comments. You might not get comments till you have 10,000 views on a video, and then all of a sudden it might light up, you know, because the comment section, and that's why you see YouTubers all the time say, put something in the comment section. And the algorithm likes that because it thinks people are interacting, and YouTube's all about, the other reason I like YouTube as a platform is because it seems to be about building communities. And that's really what I'm trying to do. I mean, yeah, it'd be great if we all like made money at this, but I'm realistic enough to realize that that may never happen. But to get a community of like-minded people who just like to play, you know, because I think what happens is, you know, and I'm sure other people have said this in other formats, but we get older and we forget to play, and it's all work, and, you know, let's chase money and things, and I like money and things, but I like to play with the things that I earn with my money, right? So yeah, you know, like, and that's why we're all here. Like, I'm here for the merch, you know, like, I could go play pinball at, you know, there's an arcade in my house. And it's great that all these old machines are there. I absolutely love that. But honestly, I was here to like get some swag, you know. Like, so thanks for taking some time out to.
Would you talk about?
Yeah.
I'm curious. Now that I know a little bit more about DnD, when you're a dungeon master, you've got some sort of a script, yes, and damage values and weapons, and like you were rolling dice and whatnot. How do you don't have that, so to speak, when we're doing Alice in Wonderland or The Wizard of Oz?
Right. So the deep dark secret about Dungeons and Dragons is the math doesn't really matter. I know there's people out there that play by the rules and like they love the rules, but I'm not one of those people. I'm one of those people that's about the performance, right? So what we're trying to do on YouTube, I've seen. There was a guy. I wish I'd written down the channel name, but he actually would talk about what's happening, and he would show his little figures on these very ornate little like maps with little trees and little bushes and little owlbears, and then in post-production they would superimpose minus 25 hit points, and then have a little, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool, I guess, but I'd rather see a human face. I don't know, like I just interact with humans, you know, so I love my figures, I love putting them on my game mats, and I love like tactics, and I'm still really mad that flanking isn't a thing in 5e Adventure League, you know, it's like, no, that makes sense, that's flanking, like that's what happens in the real. But anyway, so I like play fast and loose with Adventure League rules. on Thursday, you're supposed to run a module. My module was very loosely based on a module, but very loosely. It had puzzles in it. And I took a couple puzzles from the module. But otherwise, it was the wedding of Tan Polo and Princess Playa. So it has absolutely nothing to do with any intellectual property that's out there in the world. But there was the aluminum pigeon was their ship, and you know, so we had fun with that. And I think it was for me that was more fun than running like the Redemption of Kelvin, or you know, you're slogging against like these crazy, really high-minded puzzles.
It was also pretty amusing when the 11-year-old Nico in the room decided to use one of his powers to provide a distraction for the guards so we could get to the ship. And his idea of a distraction was, I might get this wrong, it was hippies dancing wildly on top of the ship, and then there was a floating pig ball. And I said, Pink Floyd, right? I'm not sure if you got it, but yeah. So when you have hippies dancing on spaceships, it's an interesting evening.
Yeah, from an 11-year-old boy, and it was, you know, he cast Minor Illusion. And the great thing about Minor Illusion is it's kind of up to the DM to let, you know, what happens happen. And I'm like, yeah, go for it. You know, like that's what the more creative, the better.
And I wanted to talk about costuming too. Today I did not wear a costume. I had dinner with Ruth last night. I had the same thing on. I did do laundry last night. But I have this really fun Halloween costume, and if you are like I am, when you get a new costume, what do you want to do? Want to wear it immediately. I'm not sure how it would go over at Giant Eagle this afternoon, but I was willing to give it a whirl. But seeing that this is my first convention, I didn't do so. But we haven't done much costuming on in this little project through YouTube, and aside from a couple of props, we haven't done much of that. And I think that would, particularly viewer-wise, that would certainly be more interesting. But I don't know but the hurdle there, of course, is, okay, you're doing The Great Gatsby. I don't have a flapper costume in my closet, do you? And
Actually, terrible.
but you know what I mean? Like, so how much emphasis do we want to put on costuming and props? Or just leave it bare? Or just a little bit? I don't know. We haven't figured that one out yet.
The apparel oft makes the man. I think when you get into costume, especially for actors, I've talked to other actors, and it's I'm a minor actor. I'm not but I'm working on it, and it's it helps you get in character, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, Ruth has some great costumes. Like she's like over the top with that. So yeah, she should be our costumer, our consultant.
Are there a lot of D&D things on YouTube?
Yeah, there's a ton.
Is there? I don't know.
Yeah. It's basically cat videos and D&D. The YouTube. No, I'm just kidding. That's my channel. But there was a stray cat in our backyard yesterday. It just wouldn't leave me alone, so I had to take pictures.
And I'll say this too, Patrick. If you go back to The Wizard of Oz, I think we chose 3 scenes to sort of reenact and mess around with.
Right.
And I think it would be interesting to do more scenes, keeping the same characters, and have more delineated skills and weapons. And
I think somebody's hooked.
sorry.
I think we hooked you. That's called a campaign. So when we've been doing one-shots. But a campaign is when you revisit the same and you're the same character and continue. It's awesome. So yeah, I'd love to do that.
But it also gives us an opportunity to really, like, if you're Dorothy, what weapons do you have?
Right.
A bag full of
Sharpen your fingernails. I don't know. Yeah, pick up some Glinda dust and throw it in somebody's face. Yeah, I know. It's like, I mean, but that's where the creativity comes in too, right?
And also prep work, to sit down and to make out a little character sheet.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think there's a lot to be explored there. The reason we did 3 scenes is it seems like that's all we could get done in about an hour and a half. And anybody that's tried to run a campaign, I don't think anybody's going to watch our YouTube channel for more than that long, per episode. Maybe if it gets popular and we become really great actors, but I think the exercise itself is a reward enough for now. At least it was for me. I don't know. Did you have a good time?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we got to play act and.
Otherwise, I'll be home watching Gunsmoke.
Right, which is great. But and the great thing about that 11-year-old, to go back to the 11-year-old Thursday, is after the scenario was over, I said, does anybody have any constructive criticism? Because that's how I'm going to get better. And the 11-year-old said, yeah, where's the boss fight? I didn't have a boss fight, right? So, and I get it. Like, that's how video games are all structured, right? You have these powers, you accumulate, but D&D is different, right? So, like, in video games, you level up and you gain more hit points. In D&D, you start with hit points, and they go down, 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 down. And so everybody's saving it up for the boss fight, right? Or they're like, can we take a long rest? Can we take a long rest? Do you have healing potions? Where's the cleric? We don't have a cleric. And then, so you're waiting for that moment, and I didn't do that in this one, and it was a disappointment for that young man. So I'm writing one now. I was at lunch yesterday. I'm writing a new one where it's nothing but boss fights. So let me know what you guys think about this. If you have any suggestions, just raise your hand and interrupt me because I'm looking for ideas. So has anybody ever watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? Okay, so there's this one episode where they're in a convenience store and it gets robbed, but everyone tells the story differently, right? So when Mac tells the story, he's the hero and he karate chops everybody. When Dee tells the story, she's the hero, and when Frank tells the story, he steals a bunch of hot dogs. So that's what I'm thinking about doing, right? So what I'm thinking about is. And don't steal this, because I think I'm going to try to write this for Adventure League. But my characters are in the yawning portal, and they're talking to the bartender. who's like a very experienced, grizzled bartender, has heard all the stories. So adventurers far and wide come in and try to impress him with their stories. He's not that impressed. So the first character gets to tell their story. So he says, yeah, we were fighting this owl bear in blah, 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 blah. And so then the scenario goes to the combat. So all the characters get all their powers and they fight, an owl bear. And then they come back to the tavern, like in their, the wavy line imagination thing. They come back to the tavern and they're like, well, what do you think about that? And he's like, well, I don't really believe you. And then the next character says, that's not how I remember it. It was a young blue dragon wormling that we were fighting. And then all the characters have all their powers back. They go back and they fight a young blue dragon wormling. And then you can do that like 3 or 4 times until you run out of time. And then in the intervening part in the tavern, I'm thinking about trying to make up a mini game, like a social game. So like it's your charisma against the audience, like the other bar patrons' wisdom. And you're trying to win them over to your description, right? So whoever wins will win a prize at the end. Maybe they'll win a cloak of protection or whatever the prize is going to be. And I don't know, does this sound like something that like you would play and be interested in? I know it's a little contrived, but I just thought, you want a boss battle? Go ahead.
Interesting points on if someone absolutely fails something and just gets wrecked and they drop it down to the ground, either die or something like that, it's like, find a way.
Yeah, see, that's the other thing I was thinking of. So he asked, like, what happens if they like just die and fail? And I was thinking, that's absolutely, you get a really bad boss. The characters don't actually die. In the scenario, that's the way the character remembers the story. And then, of course, it's a moment for humor. We're like, well, wait, we're all here, so that's not really the way it happened. We're not dead. So, but, so that could be funny. And then, yeah, or maybe you make it that way. Maybe it's like Tomb of Horrors, where it's like, or Tomb of Annihilation, where you just like destroy these characters. And you just get to see how good your 10th level druid is at changing into shapes and stuff, and see what works. And then maybe it's the same boss and you get to fight it 5 different ways. But I thought that would get boring. So I don't know, but I'm open to ideas. Well, one of the other reasons that I wanted to do this panel is, if you want to be a guest on the show, there's a sign-up sheet here. You can come up here, get a piece of candy, write down your email address, and you can come on the show, because we're thinking about, I said this earlier, it's hard to get enough people together to play. There's always something to do, somebody's always going to be doing something, either at a Comic-Con or some other event. And so we're going to need players. But I don't know about you guys, the optimal party size, I think, is usually 4 or 5. Anything over that, and it's combat gets to be a waiting game. You just sit there and you're like, well, I think I know what to do, but if that guy doesn't have enough hit points, I'm not going to waste this, meteor storm on somebody who has 2 hit points. So I'm going to stab him with a dagger, and that's going to be anticlimactic. So, I don't know. What do you think?
I'd like to talk about 2 more things. One thing is the role of the master when you're creating a scene, because the few experiences I have, so forgive me if I'm just sounding stupid, because ignorance is my bliss here. I had one gentleman, really nice man, good dungeon master, but he spent a lot of time just creating this beautiful, fantastical scenery, and we were sitting there for 40 minutes. I bet you've been down that road. And I was wondering, because when we take Alice in Wonderland and she's at the tea party, we in our heads as audience and as players know what that looks like. And so we didn't, I'm not sure how we dealt with perception rolls, or because, and how much time you spent, I don't recall you spent setting scenes, because it's different than, walking into a castle and how many doors are there. And
Yeah, I mean, my background is one of my degrees is in writing, so creative writing. So I learned a while back that less is more, you know? Like you can say that Gatsby is a man in his 20s. And people will fill in the rest, you know? They'll decide whether he's 135 pounds, 5'4", or whether he's 6'2" and he's 250. Like they'll just fill that in. If it's important, right, then you have to say something. But if it's not, like, you guys have all seen the Dungeons and Dragons movie that just came out? So if I say, well, there's a dragon, that's one thing. If I say it's a pudgy dragon, right? But that's all I had to say. If I say it's a purple pudgy dragon, now we got alliteration going, so that makes it funny.
well, because I should think one of the more difficult tasks is finding a balance between writing creative narration and being bored. And you have to adapt that too. As I said, we're dealing with familiar literature. We're not walking into an imaginary castle.
That's a good point. And when you read a module, like if you're DMing and you're going to run a module, there are these little text boxes that have like narrative text that's supposed to be descriptive and dramatic, but they're only usually about that big. So it's like a paragraph. It's because you're not supposed to go on for days.
And the other thing, just because I know this much about theater, I think it would be interesting, or I don't know, audience involvement. I don't know how you do that on YouTube, and with rolling or whatever, I don't know how we could make that more audience involvement, but breaking the fourth wall, so to speak, and talking directly to audience and or doing asides, being a little bit more, I don't know, highbrow in our characterization.
I think that's a different so now you're talking about maybe live streaming. So you could do live streaming. I'm not very adept at that, but that's certainly something I'm willing to learn. And I think if you do that, you may have to assign somebody to watch the chat. So while you're playing, people are making suggestions. So they're like, well, no, she should put on a blue dress, or no, she should cast fireball, you know, or whatever. So.
Oh, I hear you. I wasn't thinking quite there. I was just thinking about just sort of breaking the fourth wall and doing asides.
Oh.
Just like really.
Like Shakespearean asides.
Well, just an aside.
Like Iago, like, yeah. No, I like that. I love that idea.
Just another way to use your character.
Yeah. Huh. I don't know, you just gave me an idea.
We could wander around and do soliloquies, but I don't think anybody would be mighty pleased with that. But I don't know.
Well, I mean, as long as they're only like 6 lines long. She should have died here after blah 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 blah.
And I really think I really think that what's the text? IMHO. Asking someone to listen for more than 15 minutes is crazy.
Yeah, you guys have already been here for 33, so
No,
thank you very much for listening to it.
That too. But I mean with the recordings. I don't watch. Do you watch a YouTube? Would you watch a YouTube for an hour of?
I watched Critical Role for that long, but those guys are really entertaining.
Yeah.
But even then, sometimes I get bored. Like when what's her name like pulls out her giant dice bag and like it's like, oh my god, how many dice do you have? I get it, but it's like, you know what I mean? Like it's like, okay, you have dice. We all have dice.
Well, like I say at the end, I've only played Dungeons and Dragons three, four times. Yeah. So I'm really a neophyte at this. And as I say to all the team members who get to endure me for a couple of hours, thanks for tugging me along here. This is a very interesting journey on which to embark. You guys are fascinating.
That sounds like a great place to stop. Does anybody have any questions that you want me to? Okay, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, so we don't make any money, so it's not an issue yet, but I hope that becomes a complication that we have to like worry about. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you know, the players would, you know, we just split it all evenly, but it's pretty, YouTube makes it easy enough to show you how much each video has made, right? So like, you know, but we're really talking about nickels and dimes here at this point, you know, but it's, I mean, I get you. Yeah, you're right, I guess. So like, that's a good point. So like, if you signed up on my sheet, do I need to have like a waiver, like have you sign like your rights away to your image or something? Like, what if we make action figures or something, you know, like, I'm joking, like it's, you know, but if we ever get to that level, you know, like, I would hope that I would be willing to spread it around evenly, but that's definitely a concern. Yeah, hopefully. What was your question? Before you guys leave, what was your question?
Because my wife was like, you always embarrass me. I'm like, the good news is I'm curious all the time.
But that's our job.
It's for you with the DnD and I can only imagine. So we've only played it 4 times. I can understand the dice is
Why am I interested in it?
Yeah, what is it about DnD? Like the age of the dice, or like is it cultural? Does it back to all the mythologies? What is it that attracts you?
We'll keep this really short. I'm friends with Patrick and Tara, and I didn't have anything to do on a Thursday night. Ruth is a new friend in my life. I'm a widow, I'm kind of lonely, and I watch a lot of Gunsmoke, and so I said, what the heck? And here we are.
Nice, it's like a modern journey to the routine. And you have this collection of book clubs. We've done it.
Yes.
So now, I guess the second question pops up in my head is, do you have like a definitive character?
Ruth and I are building my character as we speak, and that's fun. Because I've just been a barbarian or a sort of elevated barbarian, sort of.
Cast dash.
Like I can cast. I've done. I know enough to cast spells, or you know, I have dark vision or whatever. But the first time I just bashed people, which is fun. But yeah, I have. That's my guy.
Nice. Yeah, like your character will grow. So.
Thanks for joining. Yeah, so you carry your figurine around with you.
I just happen to.
Wow.
I don't know.
And she's
I know. I
on.
looked at Ruth last night at dinner and I said, like, am I getting
I
into
think you are.
And I almost wore a costume today. I don't know.
If you find yourself buying a bag of 104 dice, then yeah, you'll know.
I don't know. But you were here. Yes, you started this at some point. I don't know what motivated you to.
Well, that's a great point. Let's do audience participation. So we'll just, and you can pass if you want, if you're embarrassed. But how long have you been playing D&D? Have either of you played D&D?
I was like 13. first time I played.
13?
Yeah. It's a fun thing to do with your friends. You know, it's about hanging out with your friends. It's a cool way to hang out.
So it's more about the social aspect.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would have been a very short answer to that question.
Yes.
I've been playing for a few years. I like DMing a lot more than I like playing, and it was a way to make friends with my then husband's coworkers and kind of expand my own friend group.
Gotcha. So it's expanding your friend group and having something in common with your husband.
And then it became all about storytelling and bossing people around.
Yes, I love the storytelling part. So, but you like the bossing people around part too. That is pretty cool about being a DM because you're like, no, you can't do that. In fact, just as an aside, in the non-Star Wars adventure I ran on Thursday, they were casting all these spells against the Scorn Troopers. The Scorn Troopers came in and crashed the wedding, and they were hurling vicious mockery at the Tampolo and Princess Leia. Vicious. Yeah, vicious. Anyway, so they're like, okay, I'm gonna cast Wind Wall, and I'm like, oh man, no. You're supposed to escape the room, so how am I gonna make them run away from these guys when they're gonna kill them all? So I'm like, there's a lot of them, And then I'm like, okay, one of them takes out a grenade and smashes it on the ground, and it's basically anti-magic grenade. And so now it's melee weapons, and so they have to go down the garbage chute flatly. And so I had to railroad them because they did something I didn't expect them to do, and that's never happened in the history of D&D ever. What about you guys? Have you played D&D before?
Yeah, we've been playing together about 5 years.
5 years?
Yeah. He DMs now for like a group of his family. Try to do a little more online. He actually went to the Carnegie Science Center, had like a game night.
Did you go to that?
We went.
Oh, I should have DM'd there. All right, well, we got to exchange. We all got to exchange like emails, but
Yeah, that was a blast.
oh,
But yeah, it's all.
that was on the 7th of September. I should have gone to that.
It was a blast. I thought I'd have like a rotating table.
Yeah.
So I tried to get it quick. I had one group, never left. We were there the entire session, the entire time.
They loved you.
And I mean, they said they had fun.
That's great.
So,
They loved you.
Yeah, it's all about storytelling. It's
Yeah.
all about.
I love the collective storytelling.
That's why I like
It's
it.
not just mine, it's all of ours, and we each get to put our own spin, and I love that.
The combat's nice and fun.
Yeah.
And getting things really hard is satisfying.
Yeah.
I wish my first character was a barbarian, because I love smashing things really hard. My first character was a monk, and you can still hit things hard, but not level 1.
Multi-class.
Warhammers are kind of fun.
Yes.
I've been playing for like 8 years. I was like just too old or too young to like ride the wave back when I was young and I didn't have like anyone to teach me.
Yeah.
So I started asking around and everyone was interested and no one knew how to do it. So I had to teach myself to do it. And I got to see that like light that I'm experiencing from you of like, am I getting into this? Is this awesome? So that's my new favorite thing. Like the last few years I've been turning on many people's awesome.
So I recently discovered this book. It's called The Solo Adventurer's Guide. Have you ever seen this? You can play by yourself. And it's really great for writing because it has all these tables. So like if you're just like, I don't know where this monster should be. Oh, it's in a swamp. You know what I mean? Like it's really helpful for writing stuff. What about you?
I'm also just a player at the
Uh-huh.
moment, but I had did grow up on games when I was younger, and it's more about just trying to schedule something and try
Right.
and finding people to play with.
Right. Well, come to Adventure League at Game Masters every other Thursday in Westview. That's where I DM and play, and it's a wonderful place.
For $5.
They do. There is a Pathfinder campaign on Mondays. They need a player, so you might be able to do that. Get on the Discord.
I'm wondering,
I'm already part of it.
Oh, you're part of that.
I'm the guy there on Sunday.
My friend Colin plays on Monday. You probably know him. Colin McRoberts.
One of the Mondays anyway.
Oh, it's every other Monday. That's right.
to me, this is something, I taught high school for 34 years, high school English. And to me, this is, thank you.
Thank you for being a teacher.
Thank you. It was service. So I have a pension. The pay, it means something. Anyway, to me, this is something I've watched my high school kids play with. And, so this certainly wasn't part of anything in my life.
Thanks.
That I don't have one friend
Oh, yeah.
except for Patrick, who's and Carol, who are into this. And so I'm wondering, like, where do you find people to play? And I'm not sure if it's clear. When we do this YouTube thing, we're not in the same room. Is that clear?
I don't know if that was clear or not. We're doing it on Zoom. Yeah, we're all in our respective homes. And then I have a third, I have a laptop where the camera just shines down on the chess export, but I just bought some new game mats, so we'll get some like new textures and stuff. But we really didn't use that much.
And aside from the place in Westview, because I don't have any friends, aside from Jared and Patrick who are into this, I'm not sure where I would find people to play. Do you go online and say, give them around?
Or you convince your friends to get into it.
Yes.
Sorry?
You convince your friends to get into it.
Oh,
We
okay.
found our
Get
first
them into it.
we found our first group on a looking for games forum. So Reddit specifically, but I'm sure there's other forums that are like looking for games. That's how we found our first game.
As that whole section for looking for groups.
Roll20, yeah. Right?
Facebook has a Pittsburgh DnD Dungeons and Dragons group.
How about that?
We're Pittsburgh specific.
I didn't know that. See, I learned something today. That's cool.
Well, those are more groups around Pittsburgh for D&D than there are for Shakespeare, I'll tell you that.
There was a third part of Shakespeare on the park.
Hey, darling, tomorrow night.
Oh!
And
Anthony and Cleopatra.
Patrick and Tara and I have already been to see the folios. Go see the folios. There's a first folio, but there's a second and a third folio.
Just be careful, and they started archery.
Oh, yes, I did.
Yeah, it might be like
I work at a
LARPing.
charter school near there, and they're all up in October.
But you're right. Tomorrow, in fact, I'm going to. I'm not quite sure what it is. I think it's Antony and Cleopatra, perhaps performed outside. And I can't believe this is true, but it says so on the internet. So what the heck? There are a presentation of 3 silent films with live music. I want to say it's October 1st. Isn't that Monday?
No, tomorrow's October 1st.
Well, maybe it's
Tomorrow's
the-
October 1st.
Yeah, well, anyway, I think tomorrow is Antony and Cleopatra being performed live, and then on Monday at 2 o'clock in the
Steve,
afternoon, it doesn't.
let us
seem
know
right,
when
but
we need to be
3
done.
silent films about
Okay,
Shakespeare.
thanks.
I'm all
I
psyched.
love Pittsburgh for that. You never know.
Come on, exactly.
There's a lot of cool free stuff to do in Pittsburgh. Like people just don't. It's just amazing. Or really cheap, like that game night at the Science Center. That was like what, $7 or something like that. I don't think it was very much. Like it wasn't much.
Well, the Westview gig is $5. Speaking of free things to do or low cost things to do, how much did you pay to feed a giraffe?
Well, first I paid like hundreds. Well, several of us paid hundreds. But on Thursdays and Sundays, it's $10.
You can go feed a giraffe
At the zoo. In my mind. I want that spotless giraffe that's in Tennessee. That's what I want. All right, well, we've gotten off topic, so we can all talk amongst ourselves, but they're going to need the room. Oh, I always wanted to say this on camera. Wait, hang on a second. I gotta get this right. We got to move this along. In case you guys haven't noticed, there's a motorcycle convention coming through here. Does anybody know what that's from? Adventures in Buckaroo Banzai. Okay, I'll see you guys. Thanks for coming.